and welcome to the Diablo Podcast. I am your host, Xanth, and I am once again joined by my trusty co-host, Neinball,
Oh, hi.
and a man whose face has graced your BattleNet launchers. You might have seen him take over Xbox's official Twitch account and his own successful Twitch account, MacroBioBoi.
Are we talking about me right now?
We are
Dude,
talking
somebody
about you.
God, that's awesome. Thank you very much. Awesome to be back. I absolutely love this podcast. So any opportunity I get to talk with you nerds is a pleasure.
Um, and we enjoy having you. I've been touting you as far as I can because I love everything that you bring to it. But our goal here isn't to spend our time just telling you how great you are. We have some objectives. We want to talk about recent play. We want to talk a little bit about that new patch that we got, and then the real focus today, guys, is we want to talk about the story of Diablo. We want to dig into the lore. We want to, well, we're going to spoil some things. We're going to talk about choices made and what we all kind of thought about it. So, those of you just tuning in right now, if you don't want to be spoiled, choose a different episode, or maybe wait about 20 minutes, listen to what we got there, and then tune out. We'll give you one more warning before we get into it. And last but certainly not least, we are brought to you by PureDiablo.com. Your home for an expansive wiki, an ever-growing community, of course, this podcast, and a range of other things. If you were to visit right now, you'll find a decent little article by Gazeric detailing the seasonal renowned review that is happening and what that's going to entail. Because honestly, I'm still not sure what's going to happen when season one rolls around, as well as a little bit of information focusing on item-specific farming in Diablo 4 and how to find the materials that you are looking for. In tandem with that, one quick shout out, and I think we can give some kudos where kudos is due. Our boy Leviathan has transferred teams. If you're familiar with Leviathan, former podcast guest, streamer, and was working on Diablo Immortal. He has now joined the Diablo 4 team to work on as a class designer. Class, right?
Associate class designer. Yep.
That. So shout out to you, Leviathan. We're all super proud of you.
Hey, real quick, Leviathan, also super proud of you. Let's actually make those plans happen. We live real close to one another and we were gonna go hang out. So this is my official call out to remind you. Love you, bud.
I do know he does listen, so I think we can make that happen. All right, gentlemen. What have you been playing lately? Or that's a dumb question. I know the answer. I see you guys on Battle.net all the time. Uh, what has your recent play been focused on, and what have you been doing and enjoying?
I have been trying to farm gold. Mostly farming gold, mostly farming a lot of gold. It turns out that if you're trying to play a class and create content where you need to do all of the different types of builds that that class can do, that's expensive. And respecking costs a ton of gold at level 100. Unironically, I've spent something like 4 or 500 million gold just respecking and like moving gear and moving aspects. But recently, I've been trying to get into Echoes of Lilith on Bone Spear Necromancer. That's been my kind of can I get that done scenario recently.
Embol?
Yeah, I've had a rough couple of weeks because of work schedules and stuff like that, and so I've been finding myself with I feel as if I've had extremely limited playtime, but then also going through and looking around, like not only at my friends list, a lot of people online, that it's like I'm still like level 97, so I guess I don't have a lot of room to complain. And it's mostly just been trying to maximize my time. I've been doing dungeons with a good friend of mine, just going through and we'll put like 2 hours in every night, something just blasting a whole bunch of like. We've been trying to focus on nightmare dungeons, like the 3+ levels ahead of us. We of course could do normal dungeons faster, but this is just more interesting. And yeah, I'm just trying to make that push to level 100, and then I can take a break. I tell myself. Yeah, but no, yeah, respecs. Jeez, I just found like a piece of gear and just dropped 30 million gold just trying to get damage reduction on a chess piece. So I feel that pain.
I
Not even trying to like respec. It's expensive.
Just rolling stats. What about you, Xanth? Our little hardcore boy.
I shared a little bit pre-show, but I finally made it into Nightmare Dungeons. I've taken several characters into Nightmare. I've killed several characters before I could really get going. Some of them, they're all learning experiences. So I finally have made this happen, and I'm sure I'm weeks behind both of you. But first and foremost, thank God there's a timer on Hell Tides because I would never leave. I My plan right now, and it has been for about 2 days, is I'm going to finally go and get all the altars, and then a Helltide pops, and then at 40 minutes later, I'm just like, oh, I was going to do something, wasn't I? I was like, oh, it was a nightmare dungeon. I should go do that. I should work on some glyphs, and I'll go do that, and then another Helltide pops, and I've made very little progress, but I'm having so much fucking fun. Um, we are sitting here now. It is almost a month since release. I'm just getting hit by waves of nostalgia. This feels like the summer that Lord of Destruction came out for Diablo 2, where at every single second when I was done with whatever I needed to accomplish, I wanted to get back in and play. And I don't know. I feel spoiled, and I'm having a blast. And I have cursed myself, so I will be dead by tomorrow. I'll post it on Twitter. You guys can all laugh at me.
It's my favorite thing to wake up to, if I'm going to be honest with you. I just like going, did he make it another day? And then I'll get a little notification that's like, we didn't die. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you, bud. Keep going. I don't know how anybody plays hardcore in this game. Like, sincerely, this game is heinous. It just kills you. It just decides you die sometimes. And it's like, well, that's why I don't click the hardcore button, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I've been going through and like, sometimes we'll push like a little bit higher on like a nightmare key, like we'll do like a 56 and 57 or something along those lines, and then we'll just like go back to doing 45s. And like I'll have like no deaths in like the 57 with like Stormbane's Wrath and all those other types of shit going on. And it's like everything's fine. You go into the 45, go into Champion's Demise, nice, good, easy. One big giant juiced goatman comes up, stunned, and then 20 impalers just turn at you, all throw their spears at the same time. It's like, oh, okay, I just died. And it's like, that's fine, that's okay. It's random. It's so random.
I think for me, what I found, and I think going forward, for like next season and stuff like that, is the switch from, difficulty 2 to nightmare. I could get to it at like level 46, but all the stuff was just throttling me left and right. And it was that desire to like, I want to get caught up. I want to get to a Paragon board, but like really I need to wait so that I can tackle it because I could kill somewhat effectively, but then I would just get stomped. So like I'm trying to slow down purposely, not to push myself too far until I feel like I'm actually ready. And I'll probably figure that out. Like I feel like I'm in a good groove right now. And then once I'll hit 60 or 70, I would get cocky and then I'll die and we'll start this whole process again. Hopefully I'll have collected all those altars at that point. So coming back will be a little bit easier, but maybe not. Um, in tandem with that is where our most recent play has been buoyed by a brand new patch. Now, we got a bunch of changes. We talked just a little bit about Nightmare Dungeons. The ability to teleport to them is amazing. I love it. Um, Class-wise, all my time has been spent playing Druid. I the, I didn't notice much. I felt like we were in a good spot anyway. You guys both hang out in the Necromancer realm, which I do intend to get to. I have my son and I are doing a campaign playthrough. I've rolled a Necromancer for that, but we're not even out of where I no I we got up to where the beta ended. So good for us. It's going to be a while. But you guys, I
Just
mean,
tad.
you're in the 90s, the hundreds, right? So How did this new patch affect you guys as necromancers?
I I, I want Neinball to answer it first because I think Neinball was legitimately impacted, and I think it's awesome. And then maybe I'll be a Debbie Downer over here a little bit, just a little bit.
So, I've been maining a Sever Necromancer, and so they actually like a lot of the damage tweaks and stuff like that were like 3% here, 4% there, but like all in all, it's like an 18% damage boost on Sever. So it was actually like a significant like increase. I could feel like the damage proccing, but the in addition to that, just some of the it was the quality of life changes that made the biggest impact. Being able to see my character for once, as opposed to giant black clouds, and I know that my character is in there somewhere. Being able to react to things is definitely a life-changing experience. That's for sure. Like the corpse tendrils feels snappier for pulling in monsters, I want to say that they also buffed, because this is actually props to Macro again for the tech on the blood drinker glyph and such with corpse tendrils in order to go and get fortified as a life altering experience on that one. Thank you for that. And the amount of blood orbs that spawn, even though they said it went from 30 to 35, something else has changed. I know that corpse tendrils can spawn blood orbs on interactable like objects around, like it hits, like a little cart on the side of the map and it can spawn a blood orb from there. But like I was in the middle of like Champion's Demise. There's no interactables around. I had 3 mobs and it spawned 5 blood orbs. So I've been having some really interesting things where I've been getting more blood orbs than I feel that I should from corpse tendrils. So I like it, but it feels off. But yeah, other than that, I mean, yeah, I've been predominantly playing Nightmare Dungeons, and so I went from 2 or 3 hours getting almost through a level to now getting like a level and a half every day since Tuesday. So yeah, yay! I'll definitely hit 100 this weekend instead of stressing about it.
Which is awesome. Macro.
So to piggyback off that statement real quick, I guess this is a really good question. I didn't like hyper power farm to 100. I think in like the first like 3 days, most of the dudes in Maxwell were all level 100 already, except for Echo, who's been playing, hardcore solo self-found. And I just didn't do that part of it. Like I hyper farmed until like 88 or 92. And then I've just been getting experience while doing stuff in the game. I went and finished my renown. I went and got all my altars. I started, testing out nightmare dungeons and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed the progression from 1 to 100 from somebody who I get to play 10, 15 hours a day. Don't get me wrong, but I've been doing it very inefficiently. And I still feel like it didn't take me that long to actually get to 100, all things considered, like looking across the history of Diablo games. Like I think it was a very good progression. So just in general, I've just enjoyed that. I kind of just want to give that a shout out because I've had a really good time with it, especially not being like hyper, like super efficient, always drinking an elixir, power farming, high value dungeons and stuff like that. Talking about the patch, they put a lot of really cool stuff into this patch. A lot of stuff I wasn't expecting. So like generators across the board being better, just all making more essence, generating more corpses, like Reap, generating just 25% more corpses in the same period of time. Phenomenal changes. Like hats off to them. I think that's really smart. It also helps to make that early game progression feel better, which I think a lot of new players have had really like reasonable issues with early game progression. Obviously, I personally haven't, but I had 1,000 hours in the game before it came out, so I'm kind of cheating, right? I think it's really smart that they're doing that. Other than Sever and the quality of life stuff, nothing about the patch changed the current meta of builds or the amount that necromancers are pigeonholed into using 4 skills, 5 skills if you count corpse explosion, if you're still like either on a shadow build or like a little bit earlier in your progression. And I wish they did, but our horse does more damage, so that's pretty cool. Horse. The horse skill is called bone spikes, and it's not a bone skill, and I think that's a crime.
You beat me to my follow-up question, which I was going to say at the beginning when the game was coming out. You had a good series of videos, and you did have an honest take on the state of an necromancer. And it was all backed up with some good math because that's why I tune in to your content. I like the math, um, which is a statement I never thought I would say, but here I am, and here we are. So nothing changes in your opinion yet for the Necromancer based off that initial assessment.
So a few things have changed, and a lot of this comes along with other people getting their hands on the game and innovating in ways that I did not think of, right? I am not omnipotent. I am not omniscient. I can only try so many different things. You know, if you ask this one person in my chat right now, Blood Surge and Bloodlance are great skills, and they're pushing high Nightmare like 80 dungeons with it, and they think it's very, very good. And I think they have a valid experience. I think realistically, from my first, hey guys, let's talk about the Necromancer type video, I think they've done a good job to make minions feel better and to empower us a bit more. It's still not enough. Like, no question, it's not enough. I can't target a specific monster. So even if I can make my skeletons run into combat before me, they do just attack a wall, or they like sit there fighting a little maggot when there's a massive, cultist trying to literally sacrifice me individually to Lilith. Like, minions still suffer a lot. Darkness builds are actually much more multifaceted because people have kind of come to understand just how powerful cooldown reduction is and how empowering that is. And the fact that if you can get a bunch of really strong skills and they're permanently off cooldown, oddly enough, that's pretty good. And then a little bit right now, one of the issues I run into a lot, you might hear people being like, oh, Bone Spear Necromancer is too strong. It destroys Echoes of Lilith in 2 minutes. It's too strong. That's just not representative of like 99.99% of the game, what the Necromancer gameplay experience is, what build diversity, build parity, and what build strength is really determined by. It's a DPS race, really, and you just try to ignore as many mechanics as possible. So my fear right now is that while I think there are a lot of really great ways to play the Necromancer, they all ultimately funnel into like 3 core concepts. And nothing in the patch shook that up enough, and I don't think that public opinion will be strong enough to warrant changing it, because too many people are basing things off of like Echo of Lilith. They're like, oh, of course it's good enough, it can do that. I'm like, that's like not the game. Right now, that's not the game. This game isn't Elden Ring. It's not a From Software game yet. I'm excited for when they inevitably put more Pinnacle bosses in, but Pinnacle bosses really do not represent like the main gameplay loop. So has my opinion changed? Yes, I think the Necromancer's in a better place than it was obviously before the game released, because they've done a lot to make it feel better. Do I think it's good enough, especially in comparison to some other classes? Absolutely not, in no way, shape, or form. Not for lack of them trying, but just because I don't think we've gotten there yet.
It's fair.
Move speed, please.
As a druid, I'd like that too. But it's fine. It's fine. Because we do have a new season coming soon. I don't want to gloss too much over the patch, but it was a good patch. It did increase, a lot of quality of life, but I don't think it changed much, right? Like, it didn't. The game is still very much itself. I think the next season is when we see the game change, and we get really, honestly, I feel like it becomes the game we bought, right? We get the vision. So season 1 is going to be announced next week. So we're recording. This one's for you, Leviathan. We're recording on the 29th. So next week we're going to find out about season 1, at least the date, but maybe more information. So now's the time to guess, when does season 1 release?
I'm going to look at a calendar while we're doing this.
Well, we know it'll be July.
Well, I just have to throw it out there that it's going to be July 14th, just to screw over Nerdwords, because he said he's going to be on vacation.
So are we thinking of Friday and not like a Tuesday?
I was thinking Thursday, because they're doing the global release, and that's been pushing us back. Like, pushing us back. It's because the world is round, oddly enough. Just real quick, because people always ask,
for you, maybe.
Okay. No,
this just became a different podcast real quick.
Why
Yeah,
are
we're
they
gonna be
releasing
we're
on
gonna be a
Thursday?
Lord of the Rings podcast and talk about how Tolkien elves actually literally live on a flat Earth, and that's how Legolas can see 17 leagues out into the distance beyond the curvature of the Earth. But that's a different story.
Not where I thought you were going.
That was it was such a good dismount. I was so relieved immediately. So, but people always like, oh, why is it on a Thursday and stuff? I'm like, well, it's because the way that the population who played Blizzard games goes Eastern Asia, and then the Americas, and then Europe that's the population density in order. I'm sorry, Europe. I wish you didn't get screwed all the time, but probably super late on a Thursday night. I'm thinking the 20th. They already like baked in maybe the end of July. We're not finding out details until the beginning within the first week of July. That gives it a cycle. That's like another 2 weeks where they're finally pushing the last things. I know a ton of bugs have been being reported, even from this last patch. They're aware of them, so like they're probably going to want to get a lot of those resolved. They already said end of July, so like why not take that time? And then that gives us like a week and a half in July to like play through the start of the season, I think. So
My running theory, and I've said it before, is it will be on my birthday. So July 21st. Uh, you don't have to get me anything, but Blizzard, the new season will be just fine. So that matches up pretty close with you, Macro. I think it'll be right around that. It's a good window,
Yeah.
still plenty of summer left.
And especially, it also falls in line with what they were talking about months ago, where, like the potentially like, or I guess not even months ago, like right before release, where they said it was, mid to late July. And then there's also like the data mining of like the 7 weeks achievements and all this other type of stuff that all actually does line up pretty good. That gives me a month to complete the entire season before Armored Core 6 comes out, so I would be 100% okay with that date.
When does Armored Core 6 come out?
Comes out August 25th.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And didn't they just push the release of Baldur's Gate as well? Isn't Baldur's Gate coming
no,
out a little bit? I thought they like a month early.
sure, maybe I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think I just read that today. Somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was going to be early August. This is just the best year for video games ever, honestly.
it is a crazy year for video games right now. Unironically, like I listened to another podcast. I won't give them free promo, but it is the best podcast for video games in particular. You should
I
check it out
I
and just
also
Google it.
listened to that podcast, and we can pro. It's the besties, and they're
It's the
phenomenal.
besties.
Like
Oh my god, they're so good.
they are
They're very
so
good
good.
boys.
Um, yeah,
But they've just
they
been like talking about games nonstop, and they're like, "This is such a good year." I went, "It is such like I only play one video game, but damn, this is a good year for video games. That's awesome."
yeah. My son has been devouring Tears of the Kingdom. Like that is his Diablo, right? Like that is and so he's been going to camp this week. So him and his friend are in the back seat, and they every single day for the 45 minutes are just talking about Zelda. And like I get it because here we are in our robes chatting about Diablo. And I'm happy that everybody's out there is getting their moment. They're getting their time. Like, Street Fighter 6, and we got Tears of the Kingdom, we got Armored Core coming, we got Baldur's Gate, we got Diablo 4, we got so many
Mortal
cool
Kombat.
things. Mortal Kombat, um, Starfield. It's just it's just a great time to want to play games. Okay, let's uh let's talk about Diablo's story. Now, if you've made it this far, we're going to talk about everything. Nothing is getting held back. Every particular story moment you want to talk about, we can. So if you've not completed the campaign, which, as we saw in the campfire chat, the vast majority of people have not, and you don't want to be spoiled, you don't come along. So we're going to break it down. We're going to go acts 1 through 3, then we're going to go acts 4 through 6, and then we're going to talk about the ending. So maybe you made it through acts 1 through 3. You want to be a part of the conversation there, and then tune out. But that was your warning. We're going in. Before we do that, 1 to 10, where do you rate the story?
Can we 1 out of 10 acts 1 through 3 first?
I like that. Let's change it. All right. So acts 1 through 3, 1 out of 10. We'll compare. Let's see how they held up in the second half.
I 1 through 10. I would put it somewhere around a 7, except for the fact that I think some of the best story beats happen in the first 3 acts. And then we can kind of talk about what that foreshadows for my opinion later on. But I think it was very, very strong. I don't think all of it hit for me super well, like especially around like Act 2. I was kind of like, I actually don't know why we're talking to these people a little bit, and I'd like to get back to the important stuff. And then the ending of Act 2 was like phenomenal, but obviously like we'll break that down a bit more. But about a 7.
Neinball?
I'll give it an 8. Acts
Okay.
1 through 3, yeah.
I would agree with you on that one, Neinball. I felt like it was around an 8. Okay, so acts 1 through 3. I mean, we have to talk about it because it is Act 1, right? But it is the act that we have played, right? We got a lot of
A
time in the Fractured
bunch of
Peaks.
times.
And I would argue, guys, that I've spent way more time there than you.
Just hardcore problems.
Because I
Yeah.
loved it so much.
You
Uh,
could go to other acts, right?
why?
So, but let's talk about that really quickly, because they sold us on this concept. You can start wherever you want, except in World Tiers 1 and 2, the world doesn't scale down to you. So you can't just go to Act 3 and be successful. Like monsters are like level 25 or 30.
Yeah,
They'll just kill you. Like they will just hurt your feelings. So you can go anywhere you want, and if you're power gaming, you can go wherever you want. But especially with like how much people were like anti-scaling, I'm super pro scaling in the game. But like you can't just go to Act 6. You will just die. Like the monsters there are like level 45. You will just die. So I'm a little bit confused on it, like where that disconnect happened with what they sold us on and what kind of happened in the game.
that's something. So I do a little hardcore bros with fighting cowboy, and that's something we ran into. As the goal is, all 4 of us go through the entire story. If one person dies, then we have to reroll. Um, and we're getting into Act 5 right now, and we have been going so quickly that we are now under leveled for where we need to go. So it's been like, okay, we'll just run some dungeons and stuff like that. But like that promise of like, no, you can just kind of do the story as you want. Well, technically, I can't go there. I mean, I can, but I'm going to have a bad time,
Yeah.
which hinders the story a
Yeah.
little bit. But I digress. We still do acts 1 through 3, right? Fractured Peaks, the starting of the story. Thoughts? Was it engaging enough for
The second best act in the game, in my opinion, is Act 1. I think they set up so much good stuff in Act 1, and everything is like so heinous. Nayrel's like story start, we helped that poor young girl kill her mother. That is bananas. That was like they hit you with so much stuff up front in Act 1, like this is the tone, this is what's happening, matricide, patricide, everybody gonna die. And it's like, calm down, Diablo 4. There are 5 more acts we got to get through here.
it?
And like I think the next 2 acts kind of detract from a little bit, but I love the story in Fractured Peaks and just the whole setting there. You can tell it was like the first child of like development, because it's like so well fleshed out in that area.
Yeah, it did a great job of going through and communicating the tone of how everything is. And it also is one of those things where, for me, just from like a narrative perspective of how your character gets tied into the story. Because like in Diablo 1, oh, you're just some random adventurer that goes down into the dungeon because you're looking for loot and you end up saving the world. And then later you're actually like the son of the king and your brother stuff, whatever. And then Diablo 2, it's the same thing. Oh yeah, you're just you've heard about like some demon shit going on, over in Honduras, and you want to make some money. So like, let's go and save the world. And then Diablo 3 is the whole like super big prophecy and all those other types of stuff. But then like in Diablo 4, it's actually like you have forcibly been put into this. Because you've been, fed the blood of Lilith. You've got that bloodied wolf going through and chasing you around everywhere. That just it made a very, very intimate connection to you in the antagonist of the story, which I think is something that has kind of been lacking in any of the other Diablo titles.
You bring up the wolf, and this is where we drop our first major spoiler. And that's Mephisto, right? We are interacting with Mephisto as starting in Act 1, though we do not find out that it is Mephisto for a while. So, like on those, going back and having to replay it, like it is a little bit more interesting, right? You're like, oh no, that's Mephisto. That guy's being a dick. He killed my horse and set this whole thing in motion. Um, you know, right? Um,
I'm sorry. I did just lose that. I'm Mephisto, a prime evil. I killed that dude's horse. Just real evil shit over here. Sorry. Oh god, that's so good. I
yeah,
forgot he kills our horse.
he does. It's just
Yeah.
made us hang out in that cave and set the whole thing up. But
He's that childhood bully that like goes to like push you into the pool and then grabs you real quick and be like, I just saved your life.
where would you be without me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did like Act One. I thought it had a great tone to it. Whether or not that tone we agree continues throughout the acts, um, but it felt the most polished. And obviously, that was enough. That was enticing. I think we all were chomping at the bit when we finished the beta, right? Like one of the biggest
Yeah.
things we had talked about on the podcast continuously was I want to see what happens next. So let's not spend too much time in the fractured peaks because I'm going to do it for you. Um, sorry. Let's go Act 2 and 3. And out of curiosity, when given the opportunity in the game, did anybody do 3 first?
No. No, I did a playthrough with Teo 1904 and BT Neanderthal and Hayam Sarah, and we just followed the campaign. Like we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that order. We should have gone to 3 immediately because I need to get splintering aspect from the campaign quest dungeon, which you got to do twice. Very confusing. Didn't like that. But no, we went in order.
Yeah, I also played in order, and even though you can like mix and match those, I feel as if it does play a little bit more cohesively if you play them in order.
Yeah, I maybe I will at some point just to do it, but it kind of feels wrong. I don't know. Like I just couldn't shift, and so I'm doing another playthrough on the treadmill because that's what happens when I die and I have to start over. And I'm gonna close out Act 1, and it's just the thought like I would go to 3. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to 2, and I'm gonna go to 3. So let's talk Act 2. You finally got out of Fractured Peaks. You take in the entirety of the Act 2. What were your takeaways in Act 2?
There was a lot of really cool lore that I couldn't quite figure out how it really meshed together. So before it's like too innocuous or too nebulous, Act 2 is where we see all of the stuff about druids. Like druid culture, druid lore. Scotland is clearly not Scotland, not the the Irish, not that particular island in Europe. And you get like a ton of druid drops, things that if you did play Immortal, you got to see a lot more of like druid stuff throughout part of that campaign. So it was very cool. It was awesome to see that. We meet Donan, the other Herodrum class failure at this point. gone to seed, wish he was still cool Haradrim, desperately clinging on to his son, not wanting him to ever be in danger. And he's got a dark secret that he's not letting anybody know. And then also there are just these druids who are awesome, who also were like immediately tempted and turned to evil. And I'm like, oh, I'm finding it hard to like care about this particular part of the story because it's just like, oh, we all failed at our upholding our vows to nature and we're all evil now. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, sure. That it would have been cool to meet these characters and have like to see that turn, I think, a little bit more. But we kind of show up and things already gone to shit. So
yeah, I didn't really get that feeling because I mean, like one of the druids, she didn't think that she had gone against her vows. She thought that joining Lilith was, the thing that she needed to do in order to uphold, the survival of the fittest, and such. That she wasn't even at the very end. She wasn't repentant at all. She still thought that, it's like, well, you killed me, so obviously you're the right one in this, particular situation. But she thought as if, she was going about it the proper way. And then the other one, wasn't repentant about the fact of what led him to those decisions because he had ended up, retreating, that he had helped save. It all kind of goes back. And my issue with Act 2, I'm rambling. My issue with Act 2 is also one of my problems with Act 1 is that obviously show don't tell, don't focus, don't focus on exposition and a whole bunch of those other things. But at the same time, like if you're gonna talk about things, you do have to tell us about it because there's all this talk about the days of Ash, the demon Astaroth, and all these other types of stuff that just like it's just there. It's like, oh yeah, the days of Ash and it was terrible. What happened? Oh, Astaroth. Okay, who is Astaroth and what did he do? Days of Ash. It was just like, okay, whatever. It is like some of those things I think could have been talked about or built up just like a little bit more. The same thing in Act 1. How the fuck did Anarius escape? That's like the one question that everybody wants to know. How did he escape hell? How did he get out? How did he come back? And that's all we know. Okay, good talk.
Not to ruin your train of thought, but I think you're picking up on something that we can kind of label here as lingering questions, right? So for Act 1, we talk about Anarius. How did he get out, right? And I think the other lingering question as we're looking at Act 1 is what happened to the character from Diablo 3, right? How did that character let this world happen? So 2 lingering questions right there.
Yeah.
Rush, make your graphic or something.
I guess I hadn't thought about that. I do just want to come back to one of the points. The feeling that I got with the druids. So the second druid, the one stuck in the tree.
Yeah.
I felt like he had his, come to nature moment where he's like, "Ah, damn, look what done happened." Well, yep, it makes sense. Maybe Lilith isn't great. I felt like the first character, it was supposed to be like, again, because correct me if I'm wrong, we have not met these characters previously, right?
No, none of them. Yeah.
I felt like the female druid was like so headstrong, like so we just got to make this happen. Of course, I'm going to use her power. This is important. That it was supposed to be highlighting like the ability of Lilith to frenzy people like towards hatred. Like it seemed like the character was like so single-minded that this was supposed to be like this is what happens when you court with Lilith, as opposed to just like their natural character, like just being empowered in this way. But again, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit there, like storytelling wise. And then I was going to literally ask you, hey, where have we heard about Astaroth before? Because he is just the dopest looking demon who's apparently the doorbellman for Mephisto's realm. He's like, You can't go over there. And it's like, oh, why can't I? It's like super hot. It's wicked on fire. And I know you're like his daughter or whatever, but you need my help if you're going to go across the second lake that needs a divine intervention for people to get across in the story in 2 acts. I guess we're just gonna ignore that. But they did make a Fireblood Cerberus dog, and they did have him ride on top of it like a battle tank and fight him over 4 instances, just Godzilla-ing through a city. And that was a dope boss fight, and nothing can take away from that, except for when it was bugged and you couldn't complete it for some people for a little bit there. But they fixed that. They fixed that.
We do get that awesome scene with the Soul Stone and Astaroth coming into being through Donan's son. Um, that felt like a great callback to kind of Diablo 1, like seeing the Soul Stone go in and then like that great transformation. Um, Hats off to the cinematics and to everybody who went into creating that, because I really enjoyed that moment. You knew it was coming, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
where's my son? We better find him. I was just like, no, sorry, man.
Yeah.
He's got
He's
a
dead.
grudge. This is
Yeah.
He's wicked. He's wicked a demon now.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, in the Diablo worlds, you got turned into a demon. Um, who'd have thought? But I did very much enjoy that. And then the associated fight that we got to then have with Astaroth. As we talk about kind of at the front end of those pinnacle bosses, I really want to see these bosses again. I don't want them relegated to just the story, but I want them coming back, because
Some of the
that's going to be
boss fights
exciting.
some of those boss fights were just some of the most, uniquely interesting, boss fights I've played in an ARPG, like, period. So yeah, if we could play all of them again, that would be great. I would greatly enjoy that.
To double up on that, I've been wildly impressed. So, we're going to get to this a little bit later. There is a really hard pinnacle boss fight. There's a single pinnacle boss fight. It's Echoes of Lilith. Right now, it really wants to be a From Software boss, and not all the mechanics work properly all the time, so that makes it a bit frustrating. But I love that they went, what if there were bosses in Diablo 3 that had actual mechanics that were actually hard to fight, and actually you felt rewarded for playing smart, and adding just like the simple evade to every character inside of these fights. Like, obviously being able to evade on a character isn't new, right? Like, I've played Diablo 3 and Immortal, but like coming from Diablo 2, which has been my bread and butter now for 20 years, and that's definitely not upsetting to say out loud, is like actual fights with actual mechanics where, like, if I don't dodge something, I die, is dope. Like, that's so good. And I can't wait to see more of that in the game with slightly better implementations, but the swings that they're taking here are huge, and I appreciate them.
Yeah, even though Echoes of Lilith currently is kind of turned into, can I kill you and ignore the mechanics so quickly? But it is a big change to where I just buff up my damage and then fight's over. So
Yeah, from the hardcore perspective, if it's not a one shot, but maybe like a half shot, I'm okay with. Um, I have a lot, it'll take a lot longer for me to learn things. Um, but going back to Act Two, seeing the corruption happen with, well, first Astaroth coming out, taking over Donut's son. I do want to point out
I,
the, oh,
I do have a point to finish.
Oh yeah, that's right. So we got sidetracked, and that's probably going to happen for the rest of this because there's a lot to talk about here. But yeah,
There's a
Neinball.
lot to talk about, yeah. But I mean, it is in actually, getting on that little mini tangent. Macro did kind of make me think that it is that the druid characters, and I can't remember their names for the life of me right now, do add a little bit of, I guess, of what you were looking for, because it isn't so much that, like, the female druid character wasn't so much that, like, Lilith is trying to, like, stoke you or anything like that, but that she was kind of the character that there are people that exist in Sanctuary that just agree with what Lilith has to offer, and that other people can be tempted, because you saw that, there's obviously what happened in Act 1, and you have the people in the church that were just, like, goaded into rage. You kind of even see it with, like, the eyes changing color in order to show that they're now being, like, controlled by Lilith and such, and immediately just start, oh, sure, I'll kill everybody around me. And then you have the character in Act 2 that's like, no, I agree with what it is that you're saying, and I'm going to go through and help you because this is the only way in order to move forward with Sanctuary. And then the male druid character who, after the events of the Days of Ash and saving all of Skazglen, felt that he had betrayed his people by then allowing, the Church of Light to come in, start building their own fortresses in there, start changing the culture and the people, that it's making the people of Skazglen turn against the old ways, and that he has to go back and correct things. That maybe what I did was I did the right thing for the wrong reasons, and now I have to repent for that. And Lilith then manipulates that anger and rage inside of him in order to take advantage of him, even though he doesn't agree with what it is that she wanted to do. Especially, after getting impaled to a tree and having all of his blood turn into monstrosities to enact his revenge. But it is one of those that it kind of showed that there are people in Sanctuary that agree with her. And there's other people that can, that then shows, which is, again, is like the whole thing is like playing it like in the proper order. That, even if you agree and you accept her help, it's a monkey's paw. Because he got what he wanted. He's getting his revenge on the Church of Light and all those people that turned against the old ways. But yeah, he's been severed in half and impaled into a tree. In order to pay for that comeuppance that he wanted so badly. So I guess that's kind of like what I got out of the story.
This is why you bring this guy right here. Because I'm over here like hyper oversimplifying it while we're speeding through it, and I'm like, these motivations don't really make sense. And this man listens to all of the dialogue. I appreciate you.
That's why he's the lore guy. He has it. I will point out, playing a druid through this area was amazing. It was just kind of cool, like because the druid in Diablo 2 was just this lone druid. You had like very little to go off of outside of what was in the manual. So like see other druids, even if they're evil, was awesome. To liberate Turdola. I can never pronounce it properly, but to go and liberate that stronghold and then turn it into where your druid spirits are resting is amazing. The one thing that bothered me was when I was going through with Donan's son. You come to a door, he's like, "Oh, I'll translate that's ancient druidic. I got you." I'm just like, "I'm a druid, man."
Yeah, you're like sitting there with like your shamanic staff, and you're like, I mean, okay, man, sure, like that.
I'm a necromancer, and I saw Rathma's dead corpse and had no feelings about it whatsoever. So, I mean,
Sure.
Yeah,
no, there
it's
is
not to one up you or anything, but
they do put a line in actually. They have the druid say, "Oh, your druid's almost as good as mine." It's like, well, why did you do it? Why'd you make this poor kid have to stand there for 30 seconds or whatever when I could have just clicked it myself? But I digress. Otherwise, that was my only complaint.
I sympathize because I'm playing a necromancer going into the necropolis of the firstborn. It's like, this feels familiar. Oh shit.
Yeah, interesting. Well, so to really quickly to that point, because I forgot that like we can completely skip that real quick. I have been such a big Rathma fanboy for so goddamn long. And they show us the boy and he's talking and we're gonna get cool stuff. Then we walk up and homie is dead. And I'm like, yeah, he's just dead. Just like just this couldn't have happened later. I couldn't have talked to him. He couldn't have been like, one of my, whatever this would be for Rathma, one of my disciples. They'd be like, it's him. It's the dude. It's the guy who I follow. No, he's dead. Cool. That's all right. Sure. Thanks, Lilith. That's great. That's super cool. The setting, though, that whole little dungeon area, very awesome. Very cool. I think half of the budget went into making that thing look awesome because it looks amazing. But yeah, we can. I guess we can leave Rathma's dead body there. But goddamn, I was upset. I was like, dude, let me talk to the cool guy.
It was such a huge letdown. But at least they didn't make it so that way like the Pale Man was Rathma all along, and completely. Yeah. I'm fine with having him dead if it means they didn't kill the character, as it were. So.
Yeah, and something that we'll probably bring up as we kind of keep going through the acts is that Diablo was in development for a long time. There was an article out of the Washington Post, I believe it was, that detailed out some of the drama behind the scenes with the previous game director, um, and a lot of fighting within the writers' room about certain story points. So it's interesting as we kind of dig through the story and we can kind of point to a couple things of like as they were getting closer and shifting directors, what might have had to be salvaged and what like they just kind of glossed over because it's like, now we can make this work. It may not tonally work all the way, but we're just going to keep it because we're too close. I'd be really curious. And we do have one of those former writers, D'Angelo Lazzarato, who will come on and hopefully give us a little bit of clarity on that because I'm looking forward to picking her brain. Um,
Editor.
editor. But
Yeah.
either way, in the room and definitely a part of this. So it'll be interesting to kind of see that and to see where some of these choices, like with this Rathma decision, was that the first thought or was that something they kind of wedged in? Who knows? Deandra knows, and she will tell all. Um, maybe cool.
It was like, that is a threat of lore drop. Lore will be dropped.
Um, yeah, so hopefully we can get to the bottom of why your boy Rathma was done dirty like that. So speaking of that pale dude, he's going to come up in Act 3. We did see him in Act 1, but his prevalence really becomes apparent after that. But Act 2 wise, we get to Astaroth, we do get to fight and defeat him and um, his Cerberus, which has a name that I'm blanking on. Neinball?
The Amalgam of Rage.
Amalgam of Rage, that's it. I only remember, like, I remember the data mining from WoW for the mount that was going to be announced. I was like, oh yeah, I should just think of that. Um, so we get to that fight. We get to fight a legit demon. It's an awesome fight. And we move into Act 3. We get to meet the cannibals. We get to meet those barbarians. We get to meet Tyrant King Broll, which was the closest to death during the entire campaign that I got. Um, that fight just was brutal towards me. And we do get to interact a little bit with Elias. We get a little bit more of his story, who this guy is, the former Haradrim, and the story kind of really takes off after there. When we were discussing a little bit pre-show, after Act 3, Acts 4 through 6, I cannot really delineate between them. Like I have a hard time with it. So let's talk about Act 3. What were your thoughts? What were your takeaways? Your big moments?
So it legitimately, it wasn't until this moment when I stopped to think like, oh, what do I think about Act 3? I think I was pretty impressed with the development of Elias. He gives off big, almost like almost comically ripped off like Voldemort vibes. He like literally he is taught by an older, more wise Haradrim. So he's the student, he's like the disciple under Lorath, right? And then eventually he gets a little bit too big for his britches and he goes, oh, Lorath and I have like different approaches to what the purpose of the Haradrim are. He's very similar to the female druid who goes, no, you idiot, you don't understand. The primevals are going to ruin this world. So I'm going to create a cult of personality around myself to gain enough information so that I'll bring back Lilith and then I'll save us from all of this while also making myself immortal by basically making Horcruxes are kind of a little bit that. We'll be talking about that in a little bit, but like, and then I'll become immortal and then I will save this world, you old idiot. Which is very disrespectful to Lorath. I feel like it didn't need to be that disrespectful, but I think that they do a really, really good job of just showing how much the much different approach of Elias as a Haradrim as opposed to what we have typically seen. Like very much, I'm going to be a major player in the world. People are going to know me. I'm going to have my will on this world because I need to protect it. I think they did a good job with that. Like I think that story plays very well in the setting.
I I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. I haven't even seen all the movies, so I never really picked up on that. But now that you've said it, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? He's even pale.
Yeah, I'm not trying to call it a ripoff, but
No,
most of the times I was like, well, Voldemort did that first, so we do need to give him credit. No, but it was just like it was very cool to see a modern age Haradrim just doing ancient powerful magic in the world, because it's always kind of been like, oh, the ancient Haradrim did all these amazing things. We're what's left over. We're all old and decrepit. And you got this dude out here like, I'm going to summon Lilith. That's my Tuesday. All right, let's go.
Yeah, because we never really got to truly interact with a Haradrim throughout all of the games, because there was Deckard Cain, but he was a scholar. Whereas, like, Tal Rasha, Zoltan Kuhl, Jared Kane, and the others they were like some of the most powerful mages out of all of their respective clans that could, if it came to it, move heaven and earth. They defeated, the primevals long before, the heroes of Diablo 2 did and such. So it is definitely cool seeing what like a Haradrim is capable of. And I will also say, Act 3 had one of my absolute favorite story points, where Lorath has like some shopping errands for you to go and do. Like there was a sighting of Elias out this way, and you go through, and it's like, well, he was like summoning shit out there, and then it's like we haven't heard, from the Zakarum, monastery that houses all this dark information. So go over there, and you find that Elias has plundered everything, and he's taken all of these notes and things, and then like you like piece everything together. Oh, they're gonna summon Andariel. They're gonna summon a lesser evil into this world, so that way they can siphon the power out of her. They helped that King Brol, the barbarian king, overtake like the big capital, or what was the capital city of the Dry Steppes. So that way there's all this pain and suffering in order to give Andariel more power that they could then siphon from her in order to empower, all of their own cultists and such. And you have to go and stop them. You find the old Temple of the Triune, like the original Temple of the Triune from the Sin War. You go through all of these rituals in order to get blessings to get inside. You then have Mephisto revealed that he was the dog that helped you, and you're like, oh shit, I'm doing all of these things, and it's all because of him. Something's obviously wrong here. It kind of gives you that first story moment to stop and pause. And then you're finally going down, you go into the temple, you see that Elias is conducting this gigantic ritual. He's like tattooing like the sacrificial victim and all this other types of stuff. And then Lorath is like, okay, you hide the, you be like a distraction, or like hide in the shadows or whatever. I'm gonna go take care of Elias. And he goes through, and Elias just like looks at him. He starts what's going to be the Saturday morning cartoon villain monologue, and Lorath just fucking shanks him in the neck. He gets one word out, just like, fuck you. And it's just like, that is what you would do in this particular situation. That is exactly what anyone should do. There wasn't any monologue. There wasn't any Elias, you betrayed me, in some 5-minute back and forth interchange about who is the bigger asshole in the past or anything like that. No, it's just, you're the bad guy. You gotta die. I'm stabbing you in the neck. That's it. We're done here. It's like,
we're done. Act 3's over. All right, go to the next act.
That point right there was just like, okay, if that's what Lorath was like when he was in a Rodrum, like years ago or whatever, like that's awesome. That's what a Haradrim would do. I'm not gonna let you monologue. I'm not gonna let you get your big life story out or anything like that. I'm just gonna kill you, and we're gonna move on to the next plot point. And that was beautiful. That was just amazing.
In tandem with that, he immediately runs away from the gigantic barbarian that you have to fight. Like, yeah. All right, I'm out of here.
That's just a big dude with a sword. All right, Lorath's an old guy. Leave him alone. He can kill an ancient, highly powerful wizard of ancient magics.
Elias is just a big nerd. He can bully him. Yeah. But when the junior varsity quarterback comes in, he's like, "Nah, that's okay. You got this." I
That's what
got.
you're here for.
I see. No, it's I have to carry. I have to carry Teresa, the mysterious woman who like that was like one of those like odd like closed caption choices because like in the cutscene it has her yell in pain and the closed captions name her Teresa and then immediately afterward she's the mysterious woman like
Hey, all
whatever
right, look,
but yeah I have to
it's a placeholder. All right, just
yeah I
give it
have
a
to I
second.
have to carry this I have to carry Teresa away to save her so I can't I would do it if it were a Tuesday I would take him on but I'm carrying her so can you help me out can you just take him on for me
I left my spear in the other camel. If you could just that is a hard fight. That monster type, like the cannibal king
barbarians yeah
that you end up fighting in the Gulrune like canals, in the Gulrune slums. You fight them a bunch of different times. It's like they're a rough boss to fight. They're like pretty rough. There's one dungeon where they are a suppressor with Shadow Enchanted, so they summon multiple versions of themselves and they get suppressor fields all over. It's like like if you can clear that dungeon, kudos to you and your character. It's viable, but they are a rough fight.
Yeah, I was down to, I don't know, like half half orb of health and no potions and just got lucky. Earth and Bulwark popped at the right time and I was able to kill him. But I was just like sweating buckets because I'd already died the first night. I didn't want to die again. I wanted to get through the campaign. I wanted to see what was going to happen. Uh, so that was a fight that definitely threw me, but I did very much enjoy this, as you were saying, Neinball, like hearing those whispers of those the lesser evils. Like he's going to resurrect Andariel. He's going to bring Andariel back. That's awesome, right? It's a good callback. We haven't seen her in a while. What would that be like in this world? What would she do? And yeah,
and
Laura stops it, kind of.
yeah And I want to say it also is like one of those ones that we as Diablo players, obviously, it's like it's Andariel. She's the boss of Act 1 in Diablo 2. It's like whatever. I've killed primevals. I've killed the primeval. It's like it's not a big deal. But I felt as if it did a decent job of building up that is like it's like because it's just the name lesser evil what should I be concerned of it helped because all the characters are freaking out that Elias is going to summon a lesser evil into this world that is just like you know like there Lilith is running around and all those other types of stuff but shit he's going to summon on Dario like this is something big like we can try and hunt down and stop Lilith but we have to stop them from summoning Andariel like right now like type thing I felt as if it did a decent job of building it up because these are ancient beings that have existed since almost the beginning of time that are some of the most powerful demons that have ever existed. They're at the top in terms of hierarchy. They're second only to Diablo, Mephisto, and Baal, but they've never gotten never gotten a fair share in the games because it's like your Act One boss type thing. So I thought that it was cool that they were kind of like building up the urgency in order to stop her from being summoned. Spoilers, they don't. Um,
Yeah, and I think as we talk story, right? So much time gets devoted to like, oh crap, as you said, like Lilith is coming, but if Andariel's here, this is really bad. And then what happens as we kind of make this shift as we're moving into Act 4 and 4 through 6, if you spend all that time talking about how bad it is, that that fight with Andariel and the story around it doesn't hold as much by comparison, in my opinion. Where, when we're kind of, like I said, we're going to veer a little bit. there she is. And it's an amazing fight. I do not want to take away from that. I want to do that fight all the time because I enjoy it so much. But like everybody's back in the church, like, hey, what just happened out there? It's getting pretty windy.
Yeah, that was okay. We're officially into 4, 5, 6, right? So people who have only played like the first three, if they don't want spoilers, we're about to ruin their day,
I
right?
think, yeah, we've kind of moved into it a little bit here, right? So we save what's her name? Neinball?
Teresa.
Teresa.
Teresa. Um, and hey, we prevented it. But then Act 4 comes around. And Neinball, what's the summary on Act 4 here?
Act 4 is you. So everyone's together. You know, you've completed Act 1, you completed Act 2, completed Act 3. So you have Nayroll for Act 1, Donan for Act 2, Lorath for Act 3. You all meet in a church with Teresa, who has a half-completed ritual on her in order to act as a waypoint to summon Andariel into the world. Donan isn't there. Sorry. And so Lorath is like, can you go find Donan? And so you go find Donan, you stop for a second, get your mount, and then you go back to the church, and then Act 4 is over. Oh, sorry. And then you fight Andariel, and then Act 4 is over. There's Act 4. And it literally takes about as long to play that as I just talked.
Like,
This
I
so fast.
I had a miniature little panic attack because I was like, what happens in Act 4? I'm picturing the world map in my head. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you go Fractured Peaks, Gosglin, Dry Steps, Hawazar. I don't remember Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happens over there.
Yeah,
I actually had completely missed the fact that I had done Act 4, and I was this was in like the review copy, but I was like halfway through Hawazar before I realized the little thing says Act 5. And it was just like, wait, what?
Yeah. Although they do a good job. I guess I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but in Kyrgyzstan is where we actually go to see like Elias's like weird cult compound, right?
Yeah.
Where like he has just been teaching like the people of Sanctuary how to ritualistically summon demons for the purposes of trying to enslave them to your cause, to protect us against the I don't really quite understand why he's teaching people to summon demons. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what that's like supposed to accomplish other than to just kind of like get them into the fold. But he does have like a whole cult of people like, oh, the master wants to see you. Well, you must be super important. I'm like, this is doing a really, really good job of properly representing like a wild, egotistical cult leader who is just like using these people as fodder. Like that was a really good job. I don't know why they're all just hanging out in the weird compound, kind of summoning like minor demons for it. But it does lead to one of my most favorite, like very small things that happens in the game. Especially if you're in a Helltide, you'll run across like 3 or 4 cultists sitting around a circle, working on a ritual circle. And if you don't interrupt them, sometimes like a bunch of like just a little like fake Zergling demons come out and it's like whatever. But sometimes a Pit Lord is summoned. And the Pit Lord tears itself out of the ground, shattering and killing all of the cultists around the circle as he's just getting out of the ground, which I thought was like such amazing set dressing of like these people are devoting their lives to what they think is going to save them from the invasion of the primevals. They successfully summon a demon that's actually powerful enough for it to like have a grand entrance, and him accidentally killing them as he just crawls out of a summoning circle. These people are dead. Their lives are done. And this demon's just here like, hey guys, thanks. I'm here now. And I was like, that is like such a lot of a story. Those 3 people's lives are snuffed out thinking they've accomplished something great. And it's just a demon showing up in Sanctuary again, I'm going to keep making a joke, but like, it's just a Tuesday for this demon. Yeah. And I was like, man, that's like awesome storytelling from such a small little thing that I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who's going to care about. Like nobody else is going to watch this and care about it. But whoever came up with that story beat and how that happens in game, whatever story person you are, I see you and I appreciate you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'm never really noticed that, but I'm gonna be in a Helltide the second we're done off of this podcast, and I'm gonna watch for it because I'm addicted. So let's go back to Andario for a second. Uh, uh, Hold on, we're gonna back up. What's 4 through 6? You gave me a rating on 1 through 10 for 1 through 3, right? That's complicated. Go back and think about it. But what's your 1 through 10 for Acts 4 through 6?
So I need it to be subdivided even further.
You need to do 4 and 5, and then 6 by itself.
I actually really like 5 because they sat down and told us, like, hey, do you guys remember the witch doctors? Here it is. Here's the culture. Here's what's going on over here. Like, this is no.
No.
Oh,
we are. Yeah, we are not. We have not yet met the Umbaru people. They are south of Hawazar. They're south of Kyrgyzstan. We have not been there yet.
What culture is in Hawazar?
A completely made up one that this is the first time we're being introduced to it.
Oh, well,
Hawazar was not even named until this game was announced. That was Swamplands. There's necromancers over there, and then that's it.
I thought they were introducing us to the culture that they came from. Okay, well,
nope.
So I need to change my rating a bit more now. I still think that Hawazar is a very cool setting with a lot of very awesome things in it, and I think the story pieces there are cool. If they're not attached to any particularly like known, like lore accurate peoples, that's kind of interesting. I guess I would like to see them flesh that out a bit more and give them a name, or at least tie it to something. But Act 6 is like a 10 before the last thing you see in Act 6 that I think is a little bit confusing and doesn't add up a whole bunch. But Act 6 is a 10. I don't remember Kyrgyzstan except for the stuff about Elias, and apparently I was wrong about Act 5. So put it somewhere around a 5, I guess.
Neinball?
A 7 trending to a 6, depending upon a couple of context things.
Who's going to give you that context? Is it me? Am I supposed to give the context?
Whoever I run into at BlizzCon.
Okay, I was about to say, like, I don't want that responsibility. You're the lore guy if you're depending on me.
So we talked about Act 4. Andariel, my favorite boss fight in the game. Period. The way that it's set up, like her going through and like being like the whole she's been summoned and you have no idea like where the fuck she is, and then she just starts teleporting from the side. The art that they did for her, where she's all like shackled up and chained and such, just absolutely amazing. I love that design. I actually think that her breaking out of the chains and the spiky wings popping out was like a step backwards. I wish that she had been like chained up the entire time, was like still just like gave you like this I'm throttled back and I still almost beat you type thing. Would have been a cooler like narrative step. Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed everything about that fight, even though it wasn't hard. It was very easy, but just I enjoyed the visuals and everything inside of it.
It was awesome. It was a phenomenal fight. It's also where I learned that the Sightless Eye was a physical thing you could pick up and plug in, much like Tears of the Kingdom, like your Sheikah slate. You could just pop that thing in anywhere. Oh, look at this perfect dais for this Sightless Eye. This omniscient artifact. Pop that right in there. There it goes. Mm-hmm. Perfectly faceted bone dais in Act 6. I was like, does it need to be a perfect fit? If we're like, really? Okay, all right, sure. I thought that part was cool too. It just like you open yourself up to the Sightless Eye and she looks back at you. Again, very Lord of the Rings with the stones. It was just like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you screwed up, homie. Now she can see you. And I was like, yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Um, I want to go back to Andario because it does still bother me that again they're just chilling. Like, man, again, it was really stormy out there, man. What happened? Like, seriously, just a lesser evil defeated by this guy. That's it. No kudos, just like a little golf clap, something.
Is that like, is that supposed to be representative of like what we experienced, what they experienced was different? Or did they just not come up with anything better for them to like, oh my God, you killed Indariel. They're just like, oh wow, there's a lot of dust. I'm like, excuse me? You couldn't hear that? Because I was screaming in the real world. You couldn't hear me? I don't know. I don't like to hammer on stuff and be like, oh, this is weak writing. The only reason for them to be like that oblivious to it must be that this is supposed to be representative of like we didn't have the same experience. But homie, she was right there and you could see out this doorway. Why is this your reaction? Seems wild.
I don't know.